Hello, everyone. I'm Dima Popov, one of the co-founders here at Tomi.ai, and welcome to our webinar about finding the right message and creative that would truly resonate with your target audience. Today, we will cover how to pick the right metric to judge your A/B tests, how to maximize revenue and ROI, and minimize missed opportunities for your business. A very brief introduction into what statistical significance is and why you as a performance marketer should care about it and really closely monitor it. Also, we'll discuss the execution part of your A/B tests within paid media channels, biddable media like Facebook and Google, to make sure you're measuring the right thing and that the business result you are after is delivered to you the way you want it. Very briefly, who is this session for and who will get the most value out of this session? It's probably going to be most useful to you if you use your website as a centerpiece of your inbound marketing and sales strategy to drive revenue for your business. If you have a sizable, for example, $30,000 per month or more performance marketing budget on platforms like Google and Facebook or other similar media platforms, it will help if you have some understanding of the value of A/B test, but maybe you don't have enough data or budget or something else is preventing you to unlock the full potential of proper A/B testing. Ideally, the recipes and tactics we'll be discussing are most helpful to businesses who sell expensive goods or services, high-ticket businesses, as we call them, with relatively low visitor to paying customer conversion rate. For example, 1% or 2% or even less than that. Especially, you would find this helpful if you're working in a long cycle business, the lead gen or product-led business with a relatively long sales or conversion cycle. Examples of such businesses are B2B SaaS, insurance, especially life insurance, where a lead to customer journey can take several days or even weeks. Banking, real estate, and other similar industries also would fall under this category. We will discuss how you can deploy new creatives in Google and Meta with a high return on your advertising investment at a significant scale. Just maybe a couple more words about me. Dima is a shorter name, like Dick for Richard. My name is Dmitry, the full name if you're interested. I am one of the co-founders here at Tomi. Before joining Tomi as a co-founder and becoming an entrepreneur, I used to be a McKinsey consultant. I used to work at Fortune Global 500 banking group as a chief strategy officer for their retail and small and medium business. I also served as a part-time advisor to big consulting firms like McKinsey, BCG, Bain, these kind of firms, consulting Fortune 500 financial institutions. I also have 2 kids. Before we begin on the topic, just to give you a little bit of more context on what Tomi.ai does and is, you can think about us as an AI-based website visitor and lead scoring platform. Our mission is to help forward-thinking, ambitious and tech-savvy marketing and sales teams working with long-cycle businesses or high-ticket e-commerce to scale high-value customer acquisition and increase ROI. The way we go about this is we unlock the hidden value of your own first-party data through marketing science and growth engineering. This is my co-founder and the original inventor of the technology. These are some of our early adopters and some typical results that you can expect when working with a platform like Tomi.ai. But let's get to it. The main idea for today's session, if you don't have any time at all to watch the rest of the session, here is what I want you to remember and take home and think about after this session. You need to stop looking that much on click-through rates and view-through rates for your advertising creatives. You need to start measuring the value of inbound leads and website traffic that is generated by said advertising creatives. If today most of us in performance marketing industry decide which creative to move forward with based on click-through or view-through rates, and we pray that the revenue and the ROI will follow, which is not always the case, because clickbaity creative might give you a lot of traffic, but barely any conversions and barely any revenue at all. Even if leads might be there, those leads might be extremely poor quality. Tomorrow, the vision that we are working hard at Tomi.ai to build is that a certain creative or a certain message should win because it drives high-value website traffic and high-value inbound leads to your business. If you know that, then you're confident that the revenue and ROI will follow. So let's dive a little bit deeper on how you can achieve that. First of all, let's talk about the objective, right? You want to make sure that your value proposition manifested itself in ad copy or ad creative, or if you are in B2B, for example, or you have email marketing, not just paid marketing and search engine optimization, your copy in these channels truly resonates with your target audience. So it communicates your value proposition in a way that makes your target audience tick. When I say tick or truly resonate, I mean it drives revenue, it drives opportunities, not just traffic, and it helps you to produce high return on investment, lifetime value to customer acquisition cost ratio, or return on advertising spend if you don't calculate LTV and customer acquisition cost today. Target audience is not a monolith, right? You should think about not just one message that would resonate with everyone, but you should think about segments between different ideal customer profiles. You should think about different personas and find the right message for every one of them. So why you should bother, that's probably self-explanatory, but still we compiled a list of 5 things if you have any doubts that you should care about messaging and creatives, so you don't have them anymore after this session. Implications of poor messaging are basically your paid acquisition campaigns might not be profitable at all. The impact of a truly great creative on a campaign might triple or even 10x increase in return on advertising spend, in the amount of revenue per advertising dollar that you're generating. The poor messaging and creative prevents your campaigns from scaling. A common problem is, okay, I reached a certain level of ROI, I reached a certain level of revenue I'm generating, but I'm having a hard time scaling. My ROI goes to rock bottom if I try to scale. One of the common reasons is that your message is not sharp. It's not really resonating with all of the segments that are important. So you are not talking to all of your potential market. You're very limited to someone who is okay with a mediocre message. Websites that don't convert. Messaging is not just about advertising, it's also about your landing page experience, it's about your website language. The websites that tell a great story and highlight the right pain points for the right audience obviously would convert significantly better. If you don't have a strong messaging core, you will find it hard to create a content that is engaging and converting. And having an engaging and converting content is critical to make sure you have a lot of high value organic traffic. Having engaging and converting content without a great messaging core is also unthinkable. Obviously, if you have an email marketing campaign, unstable reply rates or engagement rates are also a sign that your messaging might be off. Why the messaging is so powerful? I took the liberty to suggest a framework of thinking about what is revenue, and in this case, return on your advertising spend multiplied by your advertising budget, and all the different components that drive both ROAS and budget. I would argue that your messaging and your creative affect every critical component listed here. So let's talk about click-through rates. It is obvious that messaging and creative affects if you are stopping the scroll, if you are motivating your audience to click and come to your website. Conversion rate. Once we're on the website, if you show the right message to the right prospect and they are really interested in your product, they have a much, much higher likelihood of converting. And as we discussed, good messaging and good story on your website is also a huge contributor to your conversion rate. Customer value. Different kind of messages might resonate with different types of customers. So another lever you can pull is to try and see what kind of messaging, what kind of story is resonating with high value customers. So if you're not using value-based optimization and are not monitoring value-based metrics, you should probably start doing so. You should make it all-encompassing effort to see what helps you drive not just the conversion rate, but also the value of those conversions. Let's look at the second part of the equation here, audience size. If you have good variability in your messaging, if you have good messaging that works for all the different segments, you can reach a bigger audience. The more engaging your creative is, the more high quality interactions your potential customers have with your advertising and with your website. Advertising platforms take this into account when deciding which kind of content, including ads, to promote. So quality of your creative and how engaging it is, how converting it is, also affects not just the audience size you can reach, but the reach itself. Frequency of impressions is another important factor. If there is no engagement, if the target audience is not really into what you're trying to tell them, you will not be able to reach the frequency of contact that you want. Your creatives will burn out, your campaigns will stop. You'll need to innovate, you need to change the creative, even if it's just a minor change to allow a technical relaunch. But why settle for a mediocre technical change just to relaunch the same mediocre campaign when you should actually invest into and think about finding this missing ingredient, this secret sauce that would really be resonating with your audience. We'll talk more about that. So why messaging is so powerful? Pretty much every factor in both of those equations here that drive revenue collectively, it is affected by messaging and creative directly. Let's talk about the framework. I already mentioned that you need to deliver the right message to the right person at the right time. Nothing new about that. But let's talk a little bit more about some practical implications of this ages-old framework that everyone knows, right? Right message, right person, right time. What does it exactly mean for you as a marketer and for your business? If you are targeting the right person, but with the wrong message, you're missing out. If you are targeting the right person with the right message, but at the wrong time, this is also a missed opportunity. It tells you that you should have multiple different variants of your message being available and being served to your target audience at different times to make sure both you and the advertising platform or another channel that helps you deliver these messages have a chance to hit the sweet spot. There may be more than one message that is right for every single person. This is a revelation that comes to some marketers. Some marketers never think about it, but think about yourself. You are not one persona every day and every night. Even if you are working as a director of marketing or head of performance marketing, you might feel as somebody who cares for your team and is overburdened by the workload of babysitting all of these campaigns, solving this ROI equation, making sure you are delivering the ROI that allows your business to be profitable one day or 1 week or 1 month. On the other occasion, you will be feeling adventurous. You will be on the lookout for new trends and new technologies, like what AI has in store, recent developments in artificial intelligence and machine learning, what they have in store, how I can innovate to stay ahead of the game and ahead of the competition, right? Your target audience is not a monolith, so you need to always think about different personas and also different segments. Even such factors as territories, like, for example, do people in New York actually have the same pain as people in San Francisco? In some markets, they might have exactly the same pain points and they would respond to exactly the same message. But if you're working in a different industry or you're serving a specific segment of business or direct to consumer, you might find that local communities will have a huge impact on what kind of message and what kind of tone of voice, what kind of creative would resonate with people in this particular micro market. So always test all those different dimensions that can help you segment your audience. Do not disregard standard segmentations like age, gender, level of education. You will find that even though the core message might be the same, the flavor, the tone of voice, how you deliver it can make a huge difference on all of those different segments. Ideally, you should find multiple right messages for every person. We basically covered that a little bit. Right ad copy, but wrong and creative, wrong flavor, wrong tone of voice, wrong visual, missed business opportunity. Creative is determined by more than a segment and a persona. So again, even though we know this formula, right message to the right person at the right time for quite some time, it's important to think a little bit deeper. It has huge practical implications for you as a performance marketer, as a demand generation leader, or as a marketing leader in general, to make sure you're maximizing a business opportunity and are not missing out and losing to competition. Obviously, you need to run a hell of a lot of tests to be certain that you are not missing out. Part two, you really want to deliver right message to the right person at the right time. How do you go about it? Let's talk about the creative cycle. It all starts with a hypothesis, right? So you need to think about what kind of message, what kind of flavor, what kind of creative you want to deliver to see if it works or not, right? Then comes a production. Your capacity to produce different creatives, different ad copies is limited. You need to prioritize. But in order to test something, you need to produce it first. Then comes the most important phase, in my opinion, is validation, because usually you are not short on hypothesis. You did your homework, you spoke to customers, you read the reviews of your product or service, you read the reviews left by your competition or by customers left to their competition. You did your homework, you have a lot of hypotheses. You have some capacity to produce different copy and creative. And by the way, generative AI, recent developments in GPT-4 and other generative AI models, I think they're going to revolutionize your capacity to produce different creative variants and different flavors of the message. You can even ask ChatGPT or another GPT-4 language model to make this ad copy sound more posh or more down to earth. You can get some ideas on how to make a certain text or certain copy sound more appealing to an older audience versus more young audience and stuff like that. Other companies who are using generative AI to create visuals are also making great strides. I'm pretty sure most of you already had your chance to play with those tools. If some of you haven't done that yet, I definitely recommend you try playing with ChatGPT, all those other generative AI tools. You have hypothesis. You have the capacity to produce maybe not perfect creatives, good enough, minimum viable product level creative to test your hypothesis. But how on earth do you go about validating? How do you make sure you are picking the right one? That's the most common pain point most of marketers face. Up to a point, they actually opt in not to run A/B test at all. Why is this the most important bottleneck? So there are too many things that need to be validated. Multiple segments of your target audience, multiple core messages per segment, multiple ad copy and creative variant per core message. If you think about all this complexity and all of the things that you want to test, you need to prioritize somehow, or you need to invent the capacity to test more hypotheses per advertising dollar or per unit of time. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Another pain point is that measuring what matters, not just clicks, not just impression, not just the top funnel metrics that not necessarily lead to revenue, is expensive and time consuming. Even if you are working in e-commerce, not in long cycle business, people take time to consider their options, compare multiple different suppliers, especially if they're buying something expensive. So CTR or view-through rate is cheap to measure, but it's not a down funnel metric. You may get severely disappointed by early positive results of your creatives that initially show high CTR. If you look at the down funnel or even mid funnel, you might not get the same positive results as you would hope for. So paying customers or orders revenue are rare and expensive. You would like to measure the impact of your creative on down funnel results. High value customers, closed won deals, paid orders, customer lifetime value, but they are rare and hence expensive. So you need really deep pockets to collect enough data to measure them on down funnel results. There is also an attribution issue that I don't want to go into much detail. The more down funnel you go, the less hypothesis you test. Like, you are measuring the right thing, but your ability to test is limited because you don't have an infinite budget and you don't have infinite time. And mid-funnel leads could work as a good compromise between a top funnel metric like click-through rate and a bottom funnel metric as revenue, but only if you have the capacity to measure quality of those leads, or if you're in e-commerce, whatever the analog for the lead you might think appropriate, like add to cart, like which add to carts actually had a chance to convert and will convert, maybe a little bit in the future after a little bit of retargeting. Our research shows for our customers that up to 75% of add to carts never had the actual purchase intent. Just a single trigger, add to cart or visiting the pricing page, if it's a B2B environment, is not a good predictor of purchase intent in itself without the context. And usually there is no shortage of hypotheses. Generating AI is revolutionizing production and prototype, so you probably should not care too much about that. Since there are too many things to be validated and measuring what matters is expensive and time consuming, you will face the issue of low statistical significance. If you are not familiar with the concept, statistical significance is a measure of how sound your results are, how stable those results would be in the future. Is it just a glitch in the system? Is it just a bug in the matrix, so to say, or that is there in the real world, and you can reasonably expect, if you conduct the same experiment tomorrow and then a week after and then a month after, that you would get similar results, especially as you scale. This is the final part of the framework I wanted to share with you. So with the ultimate objective of driving revenue and ROI, what you need to do to make sure you're validating your hypothesis in the most conducive to your business results way, what you need to think about, you need to pick the right metric, you need to be thorough, you need to achieve statistical significance, and also the execution of how exactly you measure the impact of your messaging and creative. You need to be really careful not to confuse the impact of the message for the impact of something else. What this might be, I'll tell you in just a few short moments. Let's talk about the right metric. Revenue and lifetime value is what you need to be driving. This is another way to present it, like number of impressions, click-through rate, that gives you website visitors, conversion rate into a paying customer, that gives you number of paying customers, and then you have an order or a customer value. Conversion rate in itself, especially if you are in a long cycle business, is in itself a combination of different conversions. So somebody have converted into a lead on your website, but didn't become qualified. It's a trash lead. It adds zero value, or actually it adds negative value to your sales funnel. If you pass it to sales, maybe you shouldn't, right? So you have a qualification rate, the percentage of leads that actually have a chance to become customers with your business, and you're not wasting your time talking to them. And then you have an opportunity rate, because even if the customer is potentially qualified, maybe the time is not right. Maybe the problem they're looking to solve is not solved by what you are offering. So there won't be an opportunity here. Then there is an issue of win rate. So not every pipeline opportunity will be closed won. So there is a chance of win rate. What you can do if you don't want to waste too much budget and time waiting for all those down funnel conversions, expensive down funnel conversions to mature, what you can do instead is you can use website visitor scoring and lead scoring to measure the impact on revenue with high statistical significance. Click-through rate is too much in itself, but what if you could know propensity to buy and likely order size for every website visitor? That would be awesome, because now you can treat every click as a conversion with value, and you can measure the down funnel future revenue potential of all those clicks coming from all those different channels and different creatives. That's one of the features that Tomi.ai allows you to do, but you don't need to use Tomi.ai to build a prototype of the system yourself. If you want to be a little bit more thorough, you can not just stop at the website visitor scoring level. You can use lead scoring to make sure the leads that you have collected, how likely are them to become paying customers and how likely are them to become revenue. If you use both approaches, I guarantee that your level of sophistication and level of confidence in what kind of messaging really drives demand for your business versus is just getting by, you will be able to know this with a higher certainty. You will be able to know those things faster, and at the fraction of the cost it would take for those actual conversions to become available in statistically significant quantities. How to approach this exercise of building lead and website visitor scoring? The first thing I would recommend if you're new to this concept of lead scoring and website visitor scoring, you should download and read the Modern Guide to Lead Qualification, developed by Clearbit with some of their partners. It's about 150 pages long. It has a lot of good illustrations. And even though I do not 100% agree with all the recommendations, but I think this is probably the best resource out there on lead scoring and lead qualification and lead routing. Here, as a second resource, I would like to recommend, if you want to be more proficient and want to build something like this yourself, you should find a webinar called How We Train Robots by Chris Mechanic, founder and CEO of Web Mechanics. This is a partner agency of ours, and this is a completely mind-blowing webinar about secrets of success with paid ads and marketing automation. If you really want to familiarize with the concept of funnel math, you should just go to the time code 11 minutes 45 seconds. That's when Chris explained it. When you have a little bit of education, so you're not starting from scratch, you can start by evaluating your historic success with different kind of leads or different kind of traffic segments, personas, and stuff like that. I know a few of super large brands who use just this as their lead scoring mechanic. A lot of brands, by the way, in real estate, either using this right now or have used this in the past, including Opendoor, including Realtor.com. The fact that you can just segment all the different kinds of leads and see what your historic success with different kinds of leads was, you can go as simple as, okay, if you have a free trial and if you have a content download, those free trials and content downloads would have different conversion rates into paying customers. And if you start from that, this will give you a good baseline to start from to see how valuable certain conversions on your website are. In terms of website visitor scoring, making sure that you are not just able to score somebody who have shared some data with you, but also that you are able to score website visitors, you should identify most valuable website actions using the funnel math concept from Chris Mechanic. He says that paying customers are the rarest animals that ever interact with your website, so they're the most valuable. But then, maybe it is qualified leads or qualified opportunities. And if you know the conversion rate from one stage to another, the relative value of those events. If you go even more up funnel, you can look at the website lead submission, or even before that, you can look at top funnel metrics. One of the top funnel metrics that a lot of businesses actually utilize as a proxy for quality traffic is a certain time of engagement with your website. If somebody is spending, let's say, at least 30 seconds or maybe at least 1 minute with your website, the fact that they didn't bounce sooner is also a hint that, okay, maybe they are at least a little bit interested in what you have to offer, and you should try and find all those different clues or breadcrumbs on your website. What kind of customer journeys, what kind of action patterns lead to conversion into lead and then into paying customer more frequently than the general population of your website visitors. Once you have done that, you can assign a value to each particular action, like add to cart value, or lead submission value, or lead qualified lead value, 30 plus seconds on the website value. If you have a video on your website, a certain depth of view of this video might be this action, and each action might have a value of its own. But the next step would be to understand that the context matters. So you can actually define and calculate all of the different intent actions that are potentially available on your website and find the correlation with actual conversion, not just into a lead, but into revenue or a paying customer. So it's a little bit of a deeper analytics when you don't look at each action on your website separately, but you can combine them into certain patterns or calculate maybe weighted actions and try to take it a step further by still staying at the level that it's possible to process with a human mind. The final step, depending on if you have some data scientists on your team, or if you have some consultants, or if you have some specialized solutions, you can go a step further, or you can skip all the previous steps and let the AI or machine learning to cut through the complexity and identify those factors that matter, being it a firmographic data like industry, title, company size, or behavioral data, what kind of behavioral patterns, what kind of actions taken in which context lead to a conversion with a much higher probability. For example, that's one of the Tomi.ai features, but we are not alone, and there are other tools you could use to achieve a similar task. But not everyone has some data scientists in-house on their team. Not every data science team possesses the capacity to build a model that would score website visitors and not just leads. And not every data science team in-house has the capacity to make sure the lead scores and website visitor scores they produce are not just a force ranking or something like that, but those are actual predictions of specific propensity to buy and specific order size. And that's important for the purpose of measuring the efficiency of the creative and the message. Next point, be thorough. Make sure you segment your audience. We have spoken about that a little bit. Test multiple core messages per segment and make sure you have multiple ad copy variants and ad creative variants per each segment. I seem to be repeating myself a little bit here, but I cannot stress enough how important it is, especially in the modern world where most of the media buying in biddable media is programmatic. You're providing feedback about the number of conversions and the quality of conversions to different advertising platforms, specifically walled gardens like Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, but also some programmatic environments in the open internet. Then you let them actually define the right targeting for you because they just don't give you granular enough tools to go at the individual level. In this environment, making sure that you have multiple different messages and multiple different visual representations to test against each audience, it just maximizes your chances that the winning combination will find its way to the heart and mind of your prospective customer. They will stop becoming prospects and they will become your brand advocates and high-value long-time customers for your business. Different right people, different messages to the same person. Always measure the statistical significance. Why is it important? As I mentioned, statistical significance is a measurement of is what you're seeing just a fluke? Could this dramatically change next time you measure or not? So probability to be best in most Bayesian calculators, and Bayesian calculator is the tool that I personally prefer to judge the statistical significance of the tests that we do, is usually 100% minus stat-sig. Stat-sig is basically a probability. There is a 10% chance that what you're seeing is just a random walk, random fluctuation. That's what the level of significance is. And probability to best is basically 100% minus that probability. So rule of thumb, you need to have a few dozen conversions in both test and control group to achieve reliable measurement. So you may have less than that, but then the confidence in the result will be lower. You always need to remember that this probability to be best means just that strategy A is better than strategy B, but it doesn't specify how much better. It could be 50% better. It could be 0.00001% better. So in order to determine the size of the upside, what you can do right there in the Bayesian calculator, you can adjust the number of conversions in test or control in accordance with the threshold. For example, if you really want to see of probability not just to be best, but probability to deliver at least 20% better result for strategy A against strategy B, you need to cut 20% of the conversions from the test group, leaving control as is, and see what kind of results the calculator returns. Here is an example how it looks on our website. This is a free tool available to everyone. We put a little bit of time and effort in bringing this together. It is powered by true Monte Carlo simulations. Not every calculator is powered by the similarly sophisticated and well-engineered technology. But just so you know what you can expect, if you have, I don't know, 100 visitors driven by creative A and 100 visitors driven by creative B, and you have 10 purchases in group A and 8 purchases in group B, what can you say about the statistical significance of the results? Strategy A seems to be better, and the result of the Monte Carlo simulation says that, okay, there is about a 70% chance that strategy A is actually better than strategy B. What you also need to know is that there is a 31% chance that this is just a statistical fluke, and next time you measure, or when you measure not just 100 website visitors, but 1,000 website visitors or 10,000 website visitors, strategy A might be the one that would demonstrate truly superior results long term, but that's 2-to-1 odds ratio here, right? So there is a 1 chance in 3 that strategy B is actually superior when you see the results like this in your A/B test. So this is just one of the outcomes of the sample. You roll the dice multiple times, and this is just how the stars aligned this particular time. But the chances that strategy A is better. Let's see how sensitive this is to increase the number of conversion, the number of data points. So instead of 100 and 10% conversion rate, I increased the sample size to 500. I left the conversion rate the same. So let's see what the calculation is with this value. So 5 times more of everything. Now you see that the chances that the strategy B is actually superior to strategy A are not 31% anymore. It's just 13%. It's still not 95% or 99% chance for a strategy A to be truly superior long term. But I like those odds 9-to-1, a lot better than 1-to-2. And I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me that you have a lot more confidence in this kind of A/B test, making sure that creative A or strategy A, targeting settings A, are superior to targeting settings B. When you see something like this, on the one hand, you need to act quickly. So probably you don't have time, money, or patience to achieve a scientific benchmark of 99.99% confidence in your results, but at least you need to understand that, well, is this risk too high? Is what I'm saying is just a fluke? And Bayesian calculator, either made by us or by some other provider, is a great starting point for you to start contemplating that. The final point I wanted to dwell on today is how do you actually separate the impact of the message from the impact of something else? I wanted to show you one of the conversations I had on LinkedIn with one of the great guys. He's a great thought leader, but it was interesting. It stimulated my thinking, and that's why I'm sharing this conversation with you today, because I think that the topic we touched on is less known than it should be. Here is the situation. They wanted to experiment and compare a human copywriter, the best copywriter the company had, with ChatGPT. They got the same brief and same ad texts. Every variable they tried to normalize. They launched an A/B test, and here the results were. So they received the same cost per click, negligible difference. they have about the same number of clicks. The reach for those campaigns is also very similar. The inevitable conclusion from this that this influencer came to is that, wow, it looks like ChatGPT must be almost as good as a human copywriter, at least if you're judging the test on cost per click. It's a separate question if a cost per click is the right metric, and he agrees that revenue would be a lot better metric to compare this. But here's the question that I asked. What was the conversion you optimized for? And what was the bidding strategy? Because if you set out to drive the maximum number of clicks, if you have a reach as a target for the campaign, then you are tasking, in this case it's Meta, it's the same in Google or any other ML-powered platform, to deliver for the budget you have the maximum possible number of clicks. So how do you separate the impact of the actual creative that copywriter or ChatGPT had created from the ability of the machine learning that is powering bidding inside the walled gardens like Facebook and Google, ability to find the right audience for pretty much any creative? Let me repeat that. If you are running a campaign and you always use machine learning based bidding, unless you're buying specific clicks or impressions in Google, for example, there is always a little bit of machine learning involved. So when you pick your conversion target, you really need to think about, okay, do I want to measure the impact of the creative asset I'm deploying? Or do I want to measure the ability of Facebook and Google to find the right audience at a relatively small scale, if your tests are relatively small scale, of course? The answer is it's impossible to tell one from the other, unless you pour so much money into the test that this ability of the ML bidder becomes impaired because, okay, you have just depleted the most converting audience for creative A. Now he has to expand into a less propensive audience, and then the difference in creative becomes apparent. But it probably wouldn't happen until it's too late and until you're spending too much money. So my recommendation here, if you really want to understand what is the impact of the message, and if message or creative A is a lot better or the same or a lot worse than creative B, is you need to eliminate the ML optimization of bids as much as possible and use, for example, reach as your goal, or you can buy impressions. You can pay CPM price for the delivery of your ad. And when you do this, at first you will get an unbiased picture that is untainted by the capacity of the ML bidder to deliver the desired outcome. And once you have this controlled experiment and measurement of your creative assets, then you can pick the winning combination. It's not necessarily need to be one winner. We discussed that there might be multiple right messages for a particular audience or even the same person. But once you have this unbiased measurement first, only then you should proceed into deploying those ad creative at scale. And this would increase the chances that when you deploy this at scale, you're seeing good ROI, you're seeing strong reach, and you're seeing great results for your business. Now, I understand that this goes a little bit perpendicular to what ad platforms seem to be recommending. They recommend throwing all of the different creative assets into the mix and letting their ML bidders decide how much budget to spend on each of those. But since you need to prioritize your production efforts as well, and also you don't want to waste money on educating machine learning bidder behind Facebook and Google on what creative actually is better or not, if you have this good metric like website visitor score or a lead score behind you, you can identify winning creatives, you can invest into production quality, you can turn a low-key animation into a high production movie, so to say, when you know where to invest. And Hence, your chances of success are a lot higher. And also, you are not wasting all of those advertising dollars that should be generating performance on educating the ML bidder and trying to figure out by trial and error what ad creative is actually right for a specific audience that you are targeting. So avoid over optimization. Always try to separate the impact of the algorithm from the impact of the message. That's it. That's what I wanted to share today. Thank you so much for watching this. Let me know if you found this valuable. Maybe you have some questions, maybe you have some comments or suggestions. Or if you would like to discuss more ideas like this or see if predictive inbound might be right for your business, you have my contact details here. Thank you again for your time today and looking forward to continuing the conversation. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.